So thank you everyone. Thank you everyone for coming. I did this work with Regan, Mandryk, and Julita Vassileva from the University of Saskatchewan. So in today's talk, I'm going to show you that one size does not fit all when it comes to designing games for change to motivate behavior change, but instead that tailoring games for change to match the target user personality type would actually increase their efficacy at promoting the desired behavior change. And to achieve this, I am going to answer two research questions. One is, does tailoring games for change to player type increase their effectiveness? And the second one would be, are there some beneficial effects of tailoring? Are these beneficial effects of tailoring mediated by improved play experience? As we know, playing digital games has become a common leisure time activity in our society. For example, approximately 99% of adolescent boys and 94% of adolescent girls play digital games regularly. As a result, recently we're witnessing an increase in the design and application of games for purposes other than entertainment. Games for change are designed for the primary purpose of motivating people to adopt behaviors and actions that are beneficial for them and their communities. And studies have shown that games for change can actually be an effective approach for promoting desired behavior change. As a result, several games for change has been developed over the years, targeting at promoting behavior change in different domains. In the health domains, games for change have helped people to manage addictive behaviors and avoid risky behaviors, achieve personal wellness, manage disease, make healthy choices such as healthy eating and physical activity. For example, the Square Quest 2 is a casual game aimed at increasing the consumption of fruits, juice, and vegetable, and by so doing prevent or at least reduce the incidence of diet-related diseases. So the main problem with games for change is that they adopt the one-size-fits-all approach in their design. And research has shown that a design approach that motivates one type of person may actually demotivate behavior for a different kind of person. Oh, there's something wrong. This is not changing. Sorry for that. I'm not sure what went wrong actually, but there was no transition happening. I'm not sure. Return. Nothing is showing up. It's not going. Okay, sorry, there was a technological problem going on here, but I'm going to take it again. So the main problem with games for change is that they adopt one-size-fits-all approach in their design. And research has shown that an approach that motivates one type of person may actually demotivate behavior for a different type of person. For example, a game that uses leaderboard to show high score may actually motivate a competitive player, but may discourage others who do not strive in competitive environments. Yes, game one-size-fits-all may not be optimal, but how do we actually tailor games for change? To investigate how to tailor games for change, in an initial work, we studied 1,108 participants and explored the relationship between Brainhead's 7 gamer types of achievers, conquerors, daredevils, masterminds, seekers, socializers, and survivors, and investigated their relationship with the persuasiveness of 8 commonly employed persuasive strategies in games for change design. We have the competition and comparison, cooperation, customization, personalization, praise, self-monitoring and suggestion, simulation and reward. Then, using the data from the user studies, we developed models showing how people of the 7 gamer type respond to the 8 different strategies that are often employed in games for change design. And this is the result from the modeling process. Let me briefly explain what the results mean. The columns actually represent the 8 behavior change strategies that we employ that are often used in the design, and the columns show the model result for each of the gamer types separately. The numbers in the cell represent standardized beta coefficient from our model. And if there's a statistically significant effect, you will see a number in the cell. A higher number indicates higher weighing. For example, the value of 0.25 here shows that allowing people who are of conqueror type to compete would actually motivate them to perform the desired behavior. On the other hand, an empty cell indicates that competition and comparison will not motivate achievers to perform the behavior. And finally, a negative value indicates that competition and comparison would demotivate daredevils. The detail of this initial paper can be found here. It's already published. So what does this result show? The big news is that there are statistically significant difference with respect to the persuasiveness of the strategies for the gamer types. But the big question now is, how do we employ these results in game for change design? This is the same result slide that I've just shown you. And to show the feasibility of our model-driven approach for tailoring games for change, we'll design 2 model-driven games targeting achievers and conquerors. Achievers and conquerors are the 2 common gamer types, and they show distinct perception of most of the strategies, as can be seen from that result, making them interesting gamer types to consider further. To tailor to achievers, we use the strategy, which is the reward, that they perceive as persuasive. And to tailor to conquerors, we use competition, which they perceive as persuasive. It is important to note here that reward and competition actually exert complementary effect on the 2 gamer types. For achievers, competition has no effect, while for conquerors, reward has no effect. So we designed 2 versions of model-driven games called Junk Food Aliens, the competition version and the reward version. Junk Food Aliens is a cross-platform game that can be played on any device. And this is the game panel. Junk Food Aliens is based on classical space invader game with a twist in the narrative and in the game mechanics. And generally speaking, Junk Food Aliens is designed to simulate the conflicting impact of healthy and unhealthy eating in our lives, and the struggle that people go through in their lives in order to choose between healthy and unhealthy food. Players' in-game action reflect in their avatar's life. Their avatar loses health value and eventually dies as the player keeps on consuming unhealthy food. The game feature is the same for both the competition and the reward version. The only difference is that in the competition version, players compete with others, whereas in the reward version, they are rewarded depending on their performance. I will not go into the detail of the game because of time, but I'll be happy to talk about it if anyone is interested. So on a more specific note, in the reward version, players receive achievement badges depending on their performance. And in the competition version, players compete with others and are shown their performance relative to other players in the games. So to evaluate the efficacy of the game, we deployed the 2 game versions and conducted a large-scale control study on 272 game players. And we use pre-test and post-test to measure the efficacy of the game. That means we measure the players' participant behaviors before and following gameplay. We evaluated and compared the efficacy of the game using 2 experimental conditions, the tailored and the contra-tailored condition. Players in the tailored condition played the persuasive game that was designed using the strategy that they perceive as persuasive. Those in the contra-tailored condition played the game that was designed using the strategy that they perceive as not persuasive. On a more specific note, half of the players that were of achiever type were randomly assigned to play the tailored version, which is the reward version, while the other half played the contra-tailored version. And similar applied to the people that are of conqueror type. We randomly assign them to either play the tailored version, which is competition, or their contra-tailored version, which is the reward. So we measure junk food alliance effectiveness with respect to its efficacy to promote positive changes in healthy eating attitude, self-efficacy, and intention, which are actually the three direct predictors of behaviors. Remember, our model predicted that competition and comparison will be more effective for conquerors, whereas reward will be more effective for achievers. And if this is true, then the competition version of the game should be more effective for conquerors, whereas the reward version should be more effective for achievers. And this is the result from measuring the mean attitude change as a result of playing junk food aliens. For achievers, our model predicted that reward would be more effective. And just as predicted by our model, players who played their reward version showed heightened positive change in attitude in favor of healthy eating, while playing the competition version led to a mean negative change that tended to favor unhealthy eating. For conquerors, our model predicted that competition would be more effective, and just as predicted by the model, players who played their competition version showed heightened positive change in attitude in favor of healthy eating than those that played their reward version. Similar results hold for self-efficacy change. The tailored version was more effective than the contra-tailored version. And also for intention change, the tailored version was more effective than the contra-tailored version. So this is the detailed statistics of the results. The numbers in these tables represent mean changes as a result of playing each versions of the game. Note how the contra-tailored version led to no change in self-efficacy and the negative mean change in attitude for achievers. This means that using inappropriate persuasive approach could be detrimental to behavior change. The results showed that tailoring the strategies employed in game for change to player type and according to our predictive model can lead to heightened positive change in all measures, intention, self-efficacy, and attitude. However, it is still unclear whether, one, the tailored version of the game was more effective because the strategies were more effective, or the tailored version were more effective because players had better play experience from playing the individual versions. So answering that question, those questions entail investigating whether play experience mediates the effect of tailoring on the efficacy of persuasive of games for change. So to do that, we conducted a parallel mediation regression modeling of tailoring on attitude change, intention change, and self-efficacy change with play experience as a mediator while controlling for gender. And this is the result from the mediation analysis. As can be seen, the results show that there is a total effect of tailoring on attitude change with beta equal to 0.721, and that the direct effect remains significant even after including play experience as a mediator in the model. This is very important. The direct effect remains significant even after including play experience as a mediator in the model, with beta equal to 0.662. And similar results hold for intention change. The total effect and the direct effect remain significant, even after including play experience as a mediator in the model. And also for self-efficacy change, the total effect and the direct effect both remain significant, even after including play experience as a mediator in the model. The result answers our overarching research questions by showing that there is actually value in tailoring games for change. Playing the tailored version of the game for change led to a heightened positive change in all measures: attitude, self-efficacy, and intention, which are the 3 direct predictors of behavior. The counter-tailored version led to no significant change and tend to lead to a mean negative change in attitude for achievers. We tend to favor unhealthy behavior. And finally, play experience does not mediate the effect of tailoring on the efficacy of games for change. Many thanks to the following people for funding my work, and thank you all for listening. I welcome your questions.
So one strategy based on this work might be just like, well, why don't we throw all of the persuasive strategies in and let the player choose the reward that they want, right? And maybe some of them are contradictory or something like that, but do you feel it's important to focus just on particular strategies that the specific player wants to do and therefore like detect the player type online during gameplay? Or do you feel it's possible to sort of get away with building a game that all players will be able to see, that doesn't have to detect their player type and just sort of allows the player to somehow choose or self-select for which reward types they want?
Thank you for that question. I think what you just said is a possibility. Basically, in this study, there are 2 things we want to achieve or we aim to show. One of it is that it's actually possible to tailor games by only manipulating the strategies and not the game element, not the game narrative and other things itself. Yeah, and there are so many ways that can be achieved. One of them is what you just said, customization, just allowing the player to choose whichever strategy they want to deal with, actually, which I think is a possibility. The other one is trying to understand the player type from players' in-game activities and other ones. But then those are possibilities which is open to future research, to explore in future research. But then the aspect of trying to build in many strategies at a time, we actually know what's is default. I mean, most people don't want to change the default, even when they don't like the experience.
Sure.
They just want to go with the default, and eventually they will end up quitting the game just because it's not working for them, even when they have that opportunity to change it. So that might be a bit of the shortfall of allowing players to do it themselves. And the other one is that within the field of games for change and stuff like that, we actually do not know if we have multiple strategies at a time, does it produce an addictive effect? That means if I have a strategy that player is so used to, like a competition that player is more responsive to, and the reward that the player is not responsive to, if they do their effects add up to produce something negative, or if there are 2 positive strategies, do they add up to produce something better? So those are kind of open questions, but at least what we tend to show is that it's actually possible to manipulate the reward, and it's also possible to implement only one strategy and the game will be effective. And I think we successfully showed that in this. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.
Hi, I have a question about recruitment of participants. So you showed that you had 50-50 in terms of the 2 player types. How did you go about actually recruiting those player types? How did you measure them? Did they do a pre-assessment? Did you throw out people that didn't fit in those categories?
Okay, that's an interesting question. Thank you. Actually, the 50-50 is not by recruitment. We actually had over 800 players play this game. So we actually randomly scaled down our participants to get that number you're seeing, and that was why I say we controlled for gender and some other factors to get that number randomly that is actually like 50-50. So basically, but the second part of your question is how do we determine the player type? There's a scale, already developed scale for doing that. So basically what we did is that we automated those scales. First, when the player comes to play the game, the first thing they do is to respond to that question. We automatically determine which type they belong to, and based on the type, we can randomly assign them to a condition.
Okay, great. And did you use Mechanical Turk? Or
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.